word ethics in a business setting, what actually comes to mind? Is it some fuzzy feeling? Maybe an abstract character trait? Or, let's be real, a dusty poster on a break room wall that literally everyone ignores? Well, in today's explainer, we're completely changing that narrative. Ethics is absolutely not just a vague rulebook. It's a robust, actionable system. It's a real, tangible power. If you're a manager who feels like the whole concept of ethics is just constantly slipping through your fingers, you're exactly where you need to be. Today, we're breaking down a concrete structure you can actually lean on, heavily inspired by the groundbreaking work of Kenneth Blanchard and Norman Vincent Peale. We're going to look at ethics not as some mystical aura, but as a daily, disciplined management practice. Okay, let's dive into this. 5 words starting with P. Purpose, pride, patience, persistence, perspective. Blanchard and Peale created this brilliant mnemonic, and I promise you, these aren't just motivational buzzwords. These are 5 incredibly specific, operational words that, when you truly internalize them, will completely change how you lead your team. They're the everyday tools that transform ethics from a passive, nice-to-have thought into an active, driving force in your career.
All right, let's get into the core of the framework, the 5 pillars of ethical power.
I want you to imagine a solid piece of architecture, a massive structure where these 5 pillars hold the entire building up. First up, we have purpose. Think of this as the fundamental compass in your hands as a manager. Purpose is all about knowing exactly what we follow and why we're here in the first place. It's the true north for your team. Without this compass, well, every decision is just a random guess, right? Purpose gives your daily tasks a much deeper meaning, ensuring that everyone isn't just working hard, but that they're working in the exact right direction. It answers the ultimate why behind the what.
Next up is pride. Now, when we hear the word pride, we almost automatically think of an arrogant ego or something negative. But actually, scratch that. Blanchard and Peale define it as a healthy standard bearer. Think of it like looking into a perfectly clear mirror. It's a healthy internal force that maintains the standard of your work. It's that little voice inside your head that says, I'm going to do this the absolute right way because my signature's on it. It pushes you to maintain top quality without ever letting the ego consume you or your team.
Then comes patience. If you picture an hourglass just slowly, steadily letting sand fall, you really get the essence of this principle. Patience is that deep, calming belief that what is truly valuable takes time to build. In a management culture that's totally obsessed with instant gratification and overnight results, this is an incredibly powerful anchor. As a manager, you've got to remind yourself and your team that building a solid reputation, a great product, or a strong ethical foundation is a process. It literally cannot be rushed.
Which naturally brings us to persistence. Imagine taking steady, highly deliberate steps across a sheet of thin ice. That takes incredible discipline, doesn't it? Well, that is exactly what persistence is. It's the discipline required to stick to your standards and firmly hold the line precisely when the pressure rises. Because, let's be honest with ourselves, anyone can have high standards when things are easy. But when deadlines are ridiculously tight, when budgets are slashed, or when a shortcut looks incredibly tempting, persistence is the pillar that keeps you from compromising your core values.
And finally, perspective. Think of this as standing way up on a mountaintop looking down at the massive landscape below. Perspective is the absolutely crucial ability to step back, zoom out, and see the bigger picture. When you're deep in the trenches of daily management, it is so easy to get totally lost in the weeds of immediate, tiny problems. Perspective allows you to elevate your view, ensuring that your short-term actions are perfectly aligned with those big, long-term goals and values.
So how do all these fit together? Let's talk about the power of the whole, using a bridge metaphor.
And this brilliantly illustrates the absolute biggest mistake managers make. They treat these pillars like an a la carte menu, kind of thinking that just possessing 1 or 2 is enough on its own. But here is the danger of an incomplete system. If you have patience, but you lack purpose, what are you actually doing? You aren't building anything. You're literally just passively waiting around. You're watching time pass without any direction whatsoever. Contrast that with complete ethical power, where your patience is actively serving a specific, well-defined purpose. When you isolate these traits, they completely lose their power and actually mutate into something super unhelpful. It gets even more fascinating when you mix the others. What happens when you have pride, but you completely lack perspective? That healthy standard suddenly turns into toxic arrogance. You become completely blind to your own flaws because you just can't see the bigger picture. And what about persistence without pride? If you're pushing forward relentlessly without that healthy internal standard of excellence, it's no longer persistence, it's just blind stubbornness. Only the complete system generates true, reliable ethical power.
And that brings us to the ultimate takeaway of Blanchard and Peel's framework. One without the others equals collapse. Remember that bridge metaphor? If a bridge is perfectly supported by 5 pillars, and you knock out even 1 or 2 of them, the whole structure begins to wobble. Eventually, under enough weight, it's going to fall. Ethics is a deeply interdependent, holistic system. You cannot be an ethical manager on Monday relying just on patience, and an ethical manager on Tuesday relying just on purpose, but never actually combine them. They have to operate together to support the heavy weight of your leadership.
All right, let's look at your program for the coming weeks.
Because we're moving away from theory and stepping into a highly disciplined practice. Here's your roadmap for our upcoming 5-week program. We've got 5 sessions coming up, and in each one, we're going to systematically tackle one of these principles. Step 1 will be a deep dive into purpose. Step 2 will master pride. Step 3, we build patience. Step 4, we forge persistence. And in Step 5, we achieve perspective. By taking it 1 week at a time, we're going to build your management discipline systematically, giving you the actual time to implement and reflect on each pillar before adding the next one to your foundation.
But before we officially embark on that journey, we need a starting point, your diagnosis. I want you to just lower your defenses right now. This is absolutely not a test you can fail. There are 0 grades here. Think of this merely as taking a completely neutral photograph of your current state as a leader. Ask yourself these 2 questions honestly. Where am I strongest today? And where am I the weakest? Really think about those 5 words. Maybe you're incredibly persistent, but you really struggle with perspective. Maybe you have immense purpose, but your patience is just wearing thin. Do a quick self-diagnosis without any judgment and absolutely without any guilt. Just identify where your pillars are rock solid and where the bridge might be a little bit wobbly.
Hold on to that self-diagnosis because you are definitely going to need it. Next time, we begin the real work. We're doing our first official deep dive into the very first principle, purpose. We'll explore exactly how to find it, how to clearly communicate it to your team, and how to use it as your ultimate daily compass. So, are your pillars ready to bear the weight of true leadership? Think about that, and I'll see you in the next session as we start building your ethical power.